This is the most powerful and most expensive Windows laptop you can buy right now. Yep, that's the price tag for this particular configuration. And don't worry, I'll also compare this beast against the most expensive and most powerful MacBook, the M3 Max, in a future video, but let's just start with this one. Now for that price tag I mentioned earlier, you get a top of the line 13th gen Intel CPU, the i9-13980HX, and an RTX 4090. But you also get some super unique features that no other laptop currently has, like a forged carbon chassis, built-in liquid cooling, yes, liquid cooling in a laptop, and a 3.2K 165Hz screen using mini LED technology. Now, I'm a bit of a Mac fanboy when it comes to laptops, but when it comes to gaming, my Mac doesn't cut it, and I use my custom RTX 3080 gaming PC instead. So Lenovo Legion and Nahimic actually reached out to me and gifted me this laptop to see how it stacks up to my current setup, and also if it's worth that insane price tag. Now, Lenovo has a few ranges of gaming laptops, the super popular mid-tier Legion 5s, and the more premium Legion 7s. And I actually purchased a Legion 7 Gen 6 in 2021. It was a really solid laptop. But recently, I guess Lenovo just decided to write a blank check and take it to the next level because this 9i series is absolutely insane. So let's start from the outside and work our way in. So probably the most noticeable feature on this laptop is the forged carbon top shell, made by embedding little carbon flakes into a resin. Now, it doesn't add any kind of durability or weight reduction as far as I can tell. It's mainly for aesthetic purposes. Each flake reflects light differently, so it does look quite cool, but may not be everyone's cup of tea. We've also got the same unicorn vomit RGB lights as the Legion 7 laptops, and Lenovo does a pretty tasteful job here in my opinion, with RGBs around the edges and the light up logo. And just like the Legion 7s, port selection is great. There's a few quick access points on the sides, as well as an SD card reader, which isn't that common in gaming laptops, and the rest are located at the rear to keep the cables out of the way when using the laptop at a desk. Quick side note here, Lenovo actually ships 2 chargers in the box. A 330 watt charger, which you'll need to use to unlock the full performance of the laptop, and a smaller, more portable Type-C 140 watt charger for taking the laptop to work or school, for example, where you don't need all that power. Also, the power button has a fingerprint reader. Nice. Now the screen is using mini LED technology, which means it's super bright and colors are very, very good. And paired with the 3.2K resolution and 16:9 aspect ratio, I really enjoyed non-gaming tasks like editing photos and videos, or even just answering emails and reading text. And this is something that a lot of gaming laptops really suck at. The screens are really dim, like the 2021 Razer Blade 14 I reviewed previously, or it's 1080p so text isn't sharp, or it's a TN panel with washed out colors. This mini LED screen is hands down probably the best screen I've ever used on a gaming laptop. And of course it has gaming features like 165Hz refresh rate, NVIDIA G-Sync, and the response time is incredibly low for laptop screens at just 3 milliseconds. Now there is one compromise with the screen, and that is the resolution. 3.2K is kind of overkill for a 16-inch laptop screen. And a high resolution means that your GPU on your gaming laptop is gonna have to work much harder than say 1440p to push out enough frames per second. But to be fair, there's not much that an RTX 4090 can't do. So if you do find yourself struggling, your FPS isn't as high as you would like it to be, you can reduce the graphical settings or even just downscale the resolution in-game. Now the keyboards on all of these high-end Legion laptops are always pretty good, but this one is especially nice. Typing feels tactile, keys aren't too mushy, doesn't beat a proper keyboard, but it's great for a laptop. However, a big issue for me is that the entire keyboard and trackpad assembly has actually been moved down by about 2 inches to make room for the new cooling solution at the top. A side effect of this is it causes my hands to kind of hang off the edge the entire time when I'm using the keyboard, and it can get really uncomfortable, particularly after a long gaming session. And it's the same with the trackpad. It's noticeably better quality than my 2021 Legion 7, but it just feels like it's been squished and made smaller and a bit harder to use. Now this may not be a deal breaker, it kind of depends on how big your hands are. Mine are kind of big. And it also depends on how often you're gonna be using the keyboard and the trackpad, which on a laptop is probably going to be a fair bit. Now, opening up this beast reveals a pretty interesting design. Peeling back a thin thermal covering reveals a removable and upgradable SSD and Wi-Fi card, which is awesome. And there's also a triple fan setup. A smaller one under the WASD keys to keep your hand a bit cooler while gaming, which I found actually worked quite well, and 2 for cooling the rest of the system. Now, these fans have plenty of access to fresh air via the huge top and bottom vents, and I'll show you how this affects performance in just a second. Lenovo also took it a step further and designed a custom water cooling solution. But, like the RAM, it's actually on the back of this motherboard and isn't easily accessible. It consists of a little copper heatsink with a tiny pump inside it, and there are copper pipes that extend to the RTX 4090 chip on the motherboard. Now, this is a completely closed loop. You can't open it up and refill it, for example, and it's also entirely internal. Now, we've seen externally water-cooled laptops before, like the Electronics one I featured in a video last year, but this is something that we have never seen before, and it does beg the question, does it actually work, or is it just a marketing gimmick? Now, to spare you a bunch of boring graphs and testing footage, it seems to only have a minimal impact on system performance, if any impact at all. There's just not enough copper, not enough water, and not enough circulation for it to be effective. I mean, there's a reason why most closed loop liquid cooling solutions look like this. There is a lot of heat that needs to be dissipated. So if you were thinking that this would be some kind of silent, 100% water-cooled laptop, unfortunately that is not the case. This thing is still going to need to use its fans to cool itself down, which means it does get quite loud and quite hot. But it's a cool marketing feature for sure. That being said, the air cooling solution is excellent. There's plenty of venting, and all of that hot air is pushed out of the chassis very effectively by the fans. Now, the overall raw performance of this thing is absolutely insane. I mean, its CPU and GPU is literally the best money can buy. Also note that the RTX 4090 inside has a maxed out 150 watt TGP with a 25 watt boost for a total of 175 watts. And when you pair all of this raw power with an extremely well-designed cooling system, it's no surprise that being a gaming-oriented laptop, it rips through AAA rated games like Warzone. I can easily get 120 plus FPS at high settings using the default 3.2K resolution. And despite the gimmicky water cooling, the actual air cooling solution works really well and kept the GPU at around 72 degrees Celsius even after 2 hours of intense gaming. And that mini LED screen is gorgeous, and you really do notice it while gaming. Noticeable mentions include the nightclub scene in Ready or Not with all the neon lights, and of course, Cyberpunk. And obviously it rips through other demanding tasks as well. For example, video editing. I mean, applying stabilization and rendering noise removal previews in DaVinci Resolve was faster than even my desktop 3090 system, and it crushed 3D tasks like Blender. But at the end of the day, gaming laptop performance really does boil down to 2 main things: the GPU, and obviously its wattage, and the cooling solution. And the problem for this laptop is that right now, there are a lot of laptop manufacturers out there that are producing really, really solid laptops with high-end components like 4090s and high-end Intel and AMD chips, and their cooling solutions as well are also quite good. So there's really nothing special about the Legion 9i in terms of performance, even with its 3-fan setup and built-in water cooling. So the massive price markup really boils down to the cosmetic forged carbon shell, the bragging rights of saying that you have the world's first gaming laptop with integrated water cooling, and the amazing, but some may say overkill for gaming, 3.2K mini LED screen. And look, I mean, overall, it is an incredible laptop with very few flaws. And again, those flaws really do depend on the individual, but you are paying a premium for it. And compared to something like a Legion 7i Pro with an RTX 4080, it's just not going to be worth it for a lot of people. That is, of course, unless you have the cash to throw around and just want the best possible system.